When love starts to feel heavy, there is a moment in many relationships when love begins to feel heavier than it used to, even though nothing dramatic has happened. No betrayal, no obvious rupture, and yet the heart feels tighter. Concern carries an edge. Care feels mixed with anxiety, and affection quietly carries fear. Most people do not name this moment. They assume it means they love more deeply now. But Buddhist teachings invite us to pause here, because this is often the exact point where love and attachment begin to separate. Love opens the heart. Attachment contracts it. Both can exist around the same person, the same relationship, even the same moment. The difference is not moral. It is experiential. You can feel it in the body before you can explain it with words. When love is present, the breath is fuller. When attachment dominates, the breath shortens. The nervous system shifts from warmth to vigilance. The mind begins to scan the future, quietly asking, "What if?" Buddhism does not ask us to stop loving. It asks us to learn how to love without clinging. And that distinction is not philosophical. It is deeply practical. What the Buddha meant by attachment. In the early Pali texts, attachment is described using the word upadana. It means grasping is less than #0. 3 is greater than. Clinging, holding in a way that assumes ownership. It is the mental movement that turns relationship into possession, care into control, love into something that must not change. This is important. Attachment is not liking something. It is not enjoying closeness. It is the assumption that what brings comfort must remain stable in order for us to feel safe. The Buddha repeatedly pointed out that suffering arises not because we care, but because we cling to what cannot remain fixed. Everything that arises is conditioned. Everything that is conditioned changes. When love forgets this truth, attachment quietly enters. This is why Buddhism speaks so often about impermanence. Not to make life feel cold, but to keep love honest. Why attachment often disguises itself as love. Attachment often feels stronger than love. It is louder, more urgent, more emotionally charged. This is why people confuse the two. Attachment activates fear and desire at the same time. Fear of loss, desire for reassurance. The mind becomes busy. The body stays alert. Even moments of closeness are shadowed by concern about how long they will last. Love does not need this constant confirmation. Love is quieter. It trusts presence more than outcome. It does not demand guarantees is less than Heishon. 0 is greater than. Modern neuroscience mirrors this observation in its own language. Research on attachment patterns shows that anxious attachment is associated with heightened activity in the amygdala, the part of the brain that scans for threat. Secure attachment shows greater regulation in the prefrontal cortex, allowing emotion without overwhelm. Science describes the mechanism. Buddhism describes the experience. Both point to the same truth. When attachment dominates, the heart is busy protecting an identity. The identity of being needed, of being central, of being secure. Love, by contrast, does not depend on maintaining an image of self. Love without ownership. In the Metta Sutta, loving kindness is described as boundless, unobstructed, free from hostility. What is striking is what is absent. There is no mention of control, no insistence on closeness, no fear of distance. This kind of love is not passive. It is deeply present. It cares fully, while allowing the other to change. It does not confuse intimacy with possession. When love is free of attachment, it becomes resilient. It can survive disagreement without collapsing into threat. It can endure distance without turning into panic. It can witness growth without demanding it follow a predetermined path. This does not mean love never hurts. Loss still hurts. Change still hurts. But the pain does not harden into resentment. The heart remains open, even when it grieves. Where attachment enters relationships. Attachment often enters relationships through responsibility. We tell ourselves, we are only being careful, only protecting, only trying to help. But underneath these intentions, fear often speaks quietly. What if they fail? What if they drift away? What if I lose my place? In parenting, this confusion is especially strong. Love wants the child to be safe. Attachment wants the child to fulfill an image that calms the parent's fear. When the child resists that image, attachment interprets it as danger. Love recognizes it as becoming. The Buddha spoke often about craving. Tenha. Craving is not always obvious desire. It can be the craving for certainty, for control, for emotional security. When love is infused with craving, it becomes heavy. When love is free of craving, it becomes steady. The inner cost of attachment. Attachment exhausts the heart. It keeps the mind rehearsing futures that have not arrived. It measures the present against imagined outcomes. Even joyful moments are tinged with anxiety. The Buddha described this as dukkha, not punishment, not failure, but friction. The friction between reality and insistence. Modern psychology observes the same pattern. People who equate love with control report higher relational anxiety and lower satisfaction. The nervous system rarely rests. Connection feels fragile, even when it is not. Again, science names what Buddhist practice reveals from the inside. How wisdom separates love from attachment. Wisdom does not ask us to love less. It invites us to love with clarity, to notice the exact moment when care tightens into fear, to feel the body contract, to sense the urge, to manage outcomes. In Buddhist meditation, practitioners are encouraged to observe clinging as it arises, not to judge it, not to suppress it, simply to see it clearly. Seeing reveals impermanence. Impermanence loosens ownership. Over time, the heart learns something, quietly revolutionary. Nothing we love belongs to us. And yet, loving fully does not diminish connection. It deepens it. This paradox is not solved intellectually. It is lived through repeated moments of letting go. Love that frees rather than binds. When love is free of attachment, it becomes supportive rather than restrictive. It says, "I am here with you," not "I need you to remain the same." It listens more than it corrects. It trusts more than it manages. This kind of love does not weaken bonds. It strengthens them. People feel safer when they are not being held tightly. Growth becomes possible. Distance, when it arises, feels like movement rather than betrayal. The Buddha compared clinging to holding a burning coal. We think we are preserving warmth, but we are the ones being burned. Letting go does not extinguish love. It cools the hand, living the boundary moment by moment. The boundary between love and attachment is not fixed. It shifts moment by moment. Every relationship contains both. The practice is not to eliminate attachment entirely, but to recognize it quickly. To feel when love begins to demand rather than offer. When this recognition becomes familiar, something subtle changes. We stop asking, "How do I keep this?" We begin asking, "How do I care without fear?" That question alone opens space. Over time, love becomes less about possession and more about presence. Less about securing the future and more about honoring what is here now. A quiet ending. The Buddha never asked us to stop loving. He asked us to stop confusing love with clinging. One liberates, the other binds. When we learn to feel the difference in our own hearts, relationships soften, suffering loosens, and love, no longer burdened by fear, becomes what it was always meant to be.